Welcome. So we talked about the effects of Roundup on your microbiota. We talked about the effects of sunscreens on your microbiota. So if you if you are on the beach, remember not to wear a sunscreen. Wear floppy hats. If you're burning up, wear some clothes. But if you're on a high saturated fat diet, if you're getting plenty of animal fats, you should be able to withstand sun gradually. Just don't go straight from winter into blistering heat, and your body will adapt very normally and very well to sunshine. Sunshine will make you heal from infections, from cancers, from all sorts of diseases. And sunshine actually lights up the mitochondria of the bacteria in your gut, and there are trillions of those sitting in your gut, and it has a very protective and healing effect on them. There's a smoker's paradox, which is inflammatory bowel disease worsens when people smoke. The effect on inflammatory bowel disease is that smoking worsens Crohn's, but it's protective against ulcerative colitis. So one part of the intestine and not another part of the intestine. But smokers who give up smoking experience weight gain and frequently IBD. And so one of the theories is that smoking versus non-smoking changes your gut biota, your gut bacteria. And when you give up smoking, a different kind of bacteria enter your gut. When you're smoking, a lot of suppression happens, and so therefore it is very related to the gut biome, the smoking or the non-smoking. And what this is doing is it's shifting the microbial composition after the cessation of smoking with an increase of Firmicutes and actinobacteria. The Firmicutes make you fat, the bacteroidetes make you thin, and smoking kind of bungles up or messes with the microbiota in your gut. So this decrease in bacteroidetes and proteobacteria happens at the phylum level. So across the board in your body, this stuff happens until your body adapts. And so, but after the smoking stopped, there is an increase in microbial diversity. Bottom line is, when you stop smoking, the microbiota increase in diversity, and over time you'll adapt to microbial diversity. Many people have said, oh, but I eat probiotic supplements. And let me talk about an experiment they did with post-surgery patients, two groups. One group, both of them had their bowels wiped out with antibiotics. And one group received probiotics, and one group received nothing. Guess whose gut repopulated faster? Can anybody guess?
The one with nothing.
The one with nothing. And that was astounding to scientists, because they had thought that if you fed a patient probiotics, then it was a good thing. However, the problem here is the quality of the probiotics. The probiotics are onesies and twosies, one or two strains of bacteria, which then suppress in an empty gut. They will suppress all the other bacteria, and so now you don't have diversity in your gut anymore. Whereas if you don't eat anything, you go back to your normal diet which contained whatever, your gut bacteria slowly repopulate in a much more diverse fashion. So the point I'm trying to make is probiotics are overrated. There are 50 billion active bacteria in one small 3.5 ounce bottle. There are 10 trillion bacteria in an equal amount of sauerkraut. So there's no contest. There's no comparison between nature's probiotics and probiotics in a pill. And so the more shortcuts we take with medicated probiotics, with pills and potions, the more risk we're putting our health at. And this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. How easy is it to go to your local Woodlands or Whole Foods or Good Earth and buy a pound of raw unpasteurized sauerkraut or yogurt or kombucha or sauerkraut or kvass or whey, or sourdough bread. So all of those are probiotics that nature made. There is a scientist who Dr. Blazer, had a thesis on why the probiotics don't work. What he's saying is it can kickstart the biotic process, but it's not a substitute for live ferments. Bacteria without accompanying dietary changes won't work. You can carry on eating your processed foods and high fructose corn syrup and dosing yourself up with probiotics, but the probiotics cannot eat a lot of that stuff, and the right bugs are not going to grow unless you give them the right cellulose and starchy, non-soluble starchy foods that they can then munch on. So what he said was the concept of a probiotic to help reestablish our baseline microbiota after an antibiotic is a good concept, but it's theoretical. But the idea that of all 1,000 species in our bodies, taking a single species that comes from a cow or cheese is naive. Current probiotics are very well marketed, but there's not much benefit. So save those thousands of dollars you're spending on probiotics and go eat ferments. We'll have fermentation classes. Please come to those. Go to your local health food store or farmer's market and buy some ferments. But probiotics are overrated. Think of your gut as a permaculture garden. It's a forever garden. You gotta tend it with loving care. You don't want to rip things out unnecessarily. And you have to observe what works for your body, which ferments agree. Some ferments might agree with you now, and some ferments might never agree with you. And some ferments might agree with you at a certain stage in your life. Did you know that when you're pregnant and lactating, your gut bacteria totally change based on what the baby needs, what the mom needs, and so on? Just remember that our microbiome has 100 times more genes than the human genome. And we want to utilize the enormous diversity of our permaculture garden, the genetic material that our microbes give us, our live bacteria, fungi, viruses. The vast majority of these are beneficial, and we want to preserve them. Even one dose of antibiotics will wipe these out. It'll also push down your immune system so that you keep getting the same infection over and over again, and now you're developing mutant bacteria, which are pathogenic. Food is better, make your own. You can make kimchis and krauts and other ferments, kvases, sour creams, and they're all delicious. And humankind has lived on these for centuries, for millennia. Now we get to the serious topic. Until about 5 years ago, scientists had not discovered that our lymphatic system is actually connected between our gut and our brain. And so while naturopathic doctors, while homeopaths, while chiropractors, while holistic people, while moms firmly believed that the gut was associated with the brains, you go to the doctor and the doctor would say, nah, you're imagining it and you don't know the new science. The gut and the brain are not related. The brain's immune system is privileged, meaning it's cut off from the gut. And then it changed in 2014. There's a team of scientists led by Kipnis, Jonathan Kipnis, Antoine Louveau, and so on. And guess what they discovered? They discovered that there's a cap-like set of lymph vessels that go all over, that go from your lower body all the way, wrap themselves around your head like a swimming cap, and very much talking to your head. So your gut, your head, your kidneys, your heart are always and constantly talking to one another. So the old paradigm, the scientific paradigm, was brain is cut off from the body's larger immune system. And the brain has its own distinct immune cells called the glia, which are found nowhere else in the body. It's true, the glia are not found anywhere else in the body, but the immune system is very connected, now we know. And so when a child is damaged from vaccines, the first thing that happens after the MMR shot is they get severe gastroenteritis. And then the measles virus travels up north into your brain, and they have brain inflammation. And so now we know that there's a connection between the gut and the brain, and doctors like Natasha Campbell McBride figured all this out. They treated the gut and fixed the brain of these very, very sick kids. Kipnis and team found out that our understanding, our scientific understanding, I love your haircut, Sunshine. Our scientific understanding of the brain and immune system connection was completely wrong, and the brain is connected to the lymphatic system in the gut.
Could I ask, as a point of slowing down right here, if you could sit on something so that we can see your face while you're talking?
Oh, okay, sure.
And that goes up higher if you need to.
Okay. I could do that.
There's a lever. Oh, it should be. Yeah, there.
Is this better?
Now let's see. Because we're getting requests to see your face.
Okay.
Yeah.
Better?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll just do this. See this? Okay. So here, folks, is the old paradigm of the gut-brain connection. What was thought before was the immune system is in your arms and in your armpits and in the rest of your body, and it kind of stops. Can you imagine nature being so stupid? Nature is not stupid. It wasn't until Kipnis and company discovered this very thin membrane that's like a skull cap around your brain that they realized, holy cow, we were wrong. There is a connection between the gut and the brain. Andy Wakefield was correct. All the doctors who were demonized for talking about the gut and brain connection are right. Children with autism who primarily had gut disease and now have brain disease, we have a potential explanation for why. So that's a very big thing that happened. And we know that a lot of these systems carry microbes in them. They carry viruses. They carry pathogens. They carry friendly bacteria, fungi, viruses. They carry heavy metals in them. And so because there's a connection between the gut and the brain, things that are wrong with the gut are oftentimes also wrong with the brain. So if you have a gut-blood barrier that is breached, chances are your brain blood barrier is breached as well. This is a picture of a person with autism. I think she was 6 years or more old, still using diapers, still throwing tantrums, still in very, very, very poor cognitive condition, with severe gastrointestinal symptoms, diarrhea 12 times a day, and encephalopathy of the brain. So the bacteria in your gut determine your mental health. What goes on in your gut determines your mental health. Schizophrenia, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, depression, all of these things are very related to what's happening in your gut. And if your gut microbiota is not functioning adequately, you are going to have brain problems. You ever heard of people who took antibiotics, 1 or 2 or 3 courses of antibiotics, and then became very suicidal? You get psychosis because your bacteria are responsible for making about 90%, or your neurotransmitters, 90% of your serotonin is made in your gut, and bacteria are critical for that. 50% of your dopamine is made in your gut. And these are children whose guts had severe dysbiosis. And when you fix the gut, you fix the obsessive compulsive disorder, you fix the ADHD, you fix the depression, you fix the diseases of the mind. So if you're feeling unhappy, I would say eat sauerkraut, eat beet kvass, eat lots of butter, because your gut bacteria love butter. And what that's going to do is it's going to create this mucilaginous membrane on the inner side of your intestines that'll protect it. It's going to cause your gut to make the neurotransmitters that you need to think, to be happy, to be cheerful, to dance with joy when you wake up every day. And food is really the best medicine there is. It's not probiotics. Antibiotics will wipe out your gut. Radiation will wipe out your gut. Chemo will wipe out your gut. Steroids. A lot of the elderly are giving steroids for pain. Those will wipe out your gut bacteria, and you will end up with long-term mental illness as a consequence of not having gut bacteria.
And so you would probably suggest that it better be organic and the best quality.
Oh, yes, yes. And so having seen what Roundup does to your gut bacteria, you want to buy the very best organic foods that you can find, that you can afford, and go talk to farmers. If you want to know where your food is coming from, and buy in season. Buy what is in season. You don't have to buy Chilean and Argentinian, things when locally you have this abundance of crop and meat and butters available to you for your enjoyment. So go with food that is clean, go with food that is friendly to your gut bacteria, and especially try and eat indigestible starches. Jerusalem artichokes, jicama come to mind. So these are the things that your gut bacteria love. And sometimes your gut bacteria will actually crave it. There are people who say, I can't live unless I eat so and so and so food. I have to have my okra. And that's your gut bacteria screaming at you and saying, hey, I want these foods. And you'll find that your child becomes better if they are on the autism spectrum. So the gut produces 95% of our serotonin. And what does the serotonin do? It helps us, gives us the ability to think, to be happy, to have a positive attitude. Bacteria help us to make the tryptophan. The shikimate pathway helps the bacteria make these what are called aromatic amino acids, and that is what helps to make the serotonin. Things like antidepressants, benzodiazepines, sleeping pills, anti-anxiety medications, net are going to destroy your gut bacteria and therefore make you sicker. They're going to make you more anxious. They're going to make you more depressed. They're going to make you more schizoid. They're going to make you have more psychosis. These drugs are also fat soluble, and so they can easily penetrate the intestinal walls, cross over into the brain, and affect your brain, but they do a number on your gut bacteria. They're the SSRIs, which don't really work. It's like pushing down or clamping down on the function of one part of your neurotransmitter system and the expectation that good things will happen. It never does. The body is very complex. And what the SSRIs are doing is they're affecting your intestinal motility. You heard of people getting constipation. They affect intestinal motility by upsetting your serotonin balance in the gut. So not only does your brain need serotonin to make you happy, you need it to digest food properly. And the peristalsis gets affected by not having serotonin or the selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. And so every time you go to the pharmaceutical route for addressing a real life problem, think about the long-term effects. It is hazardous to your health. Some of them will cause too much diarrhea or too little bowel movement, thereby causing constipation. You get side effects like nausea, stomach upset, anorexia from a lot of these, and all of these affect your gut bacteria. You need your serotonin for digestion as well as your mental well-being, and to have serotonin, you must have gut bacteria. It helps you maintain a state of calm and parasympathetic behavior, your favorite, in the gut as well as your brain. So when you're stressed out, the path to even-keeledness, the path to less anxiety, is to take a chug of kefir or kvass or kombucha, and you will actually feel more parasympathetic. Your sympathetic system will get calmed down. And that's because bacteria are helping you deal with your problems.
Just let you know that Pedro Jackson is watching.
Hi, Pedro. Pedro made some very useful comments on permaculture. He identified my fungus. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Bacteria in the presence or absence can therefore make us depressed, anxious, obsessive compulsive, and even autistic. Because children are very young, you see symptoms of autism. If it's an elderly person, you see depression, you see schizophrenia-like behaviors, psychosis, suicidal thoughts, and so on. So it's very, very critical to get bacteria daily. And if you make food your medicine, you're eating food daily. You're eating your medicine daily. You're getting bacteria daily. You're getting prebiotics daily. So what you're doing is not responding to an emergency, but maintaining a state of calm and being preventive instead of combative with your body. It's very important. The gut produces 50% of your dopamine, and the gut bacteria produce the tyrosine, which makes the dopamine. Without the gut bacteria, you cannot make that tyrosine. Dopamine imbalances will cause things like Parkinson's. So people with Parkinson's, critical to eat lots of ferments. And instead, what we're doing is we're giving them drugs that will reduce the sudden spastic movement. That's not going to help. That's not curative. That's just reducing the symptoms. And all of those drugs have severe side effects. One of the main ones being they destroy your gut biome. And so we have this nexus of what all these neurotransmitters cause or bring about in your body. And where I have written serotonin, you can replace it with 1,000 other neurotransmitters that are responsible for control your anxiety, impulses, irritability, mood and cognition, obsessive compulsive behaviors. Dopamine helps you with your reward, motivation. You can delay your gratification if you have enough dopamine. You can wait 8 hours to get the bigger prize if you have ample levels of dopamine in your body. You can't have that unless you have ferments. And so moms who send their children to school with peanut butter jelly sandwiches and they don't have ferments, the children are going to go for the path of least resistance. They're not going to they're not going to be motivated to wait for a longer term reward, for a longer term effort. And so it's critical that they have good amounts of dopamine, good amounts of serotonin. Norepinephrine helps with energy and concentration, also made by amino acids that your gut bacteria make. And you find children who have a very high glycemic load. So they're on low-fat milk. They're on low-saturated fat diets. They're eating corn chips. They're eating high-fructose corn syrup. And they have free vending machines in school that dispense all the soda pop that they can eat. And so therefore, they have no gut bacteria to speak of. They're falling asleep within the first hour or two. Then they have low blood sugar, and then they're fainting. And so this is not a recipe for a good education. So if you give them bacteria in the morning, give them bacteria with their lunch, give them bacteria at dinner, your children will do better. Any questions?
Not yet.
Okay. Your bacteria heal and seal your gut. An inflamed, shall I shut the door?
Sure.
An inflamed gut is a leaky gut, and what it does, it causes a leaky brain as well. I'm going to shut the door while you look at that slide.
And if any of you have questions, please write them, and I'll read them to Sushma. Or comments.
Okay, so the fact that your gut is inflamed and leaky should tell you something. Your gut has a barrier 1 cell thick, and there's a barrier between your blood and your brain that likewise is 1 cell thick. And when pathogenic bacteria or not having a mucous membrane in your gut makes this cell wall in your intestines fragile and vulnerable and permeable, the same thing is going on in your blood-brain or lymph-brain barriers. And so whatever caused the leaky guts the absence of bacteria, the presence of drugs and pesticides and herbicides, vaccines, poisons, x-rays, radiation, antibiotics, chemotherapy is going to cause similar symptoms in your blood-brain and lymph-brain barriers. And the barriers are the key to protecting the integrity of the internal organs, your brain, your kidneys, your heart, and so on. And when there's a leak, your body senses that leak, and your body is trying to protect it, because through this leak, large protein molecules will seep through. Bacterial toxins or bacterial detritus that shouldn't seep through is seeping through. And you actually find from a leaky gut bacteria going up into the brain, measles virus escaping into the brain and causing severe infections and inflammation in a very pristine, otherwise pristine system. And so what does your body do? It's going to set up an inflammatory response. And the inflammatory response is a response you want to have, like Mirabai, when you had cough, when you have a respiratory infection, or when you have pneumonia, when you have whooping cough or measles or mumps, the short-term acute infections, that's when you want the inflammatory response. You don't want the inflammatory response for 3 years in a row. What is happening here is, because the leaky gut, the leaky brain, you have an inflammatory response that never goes up, because your body is being flooded with undigested food particles, with bacterial toxins, with dead bacterial antigens. And so what your body is doing is setting up a general warning and war against everything, and it ends up being a lot of your body parts, meaning to the extent that the bacterial walls or endotoxins resemble your own organs, your body is going to attack your pancreas, so you get type 1 diabetes. It's going to attack your heart, so you get heart disease. It's going to attack your kidneys, you get kidney failure, mental disease. In all of this, the bacteria are critical in maintaining the integrity. We've always lived with our bacteria. We have evolved. The mitochondrion in our cells, our energy powerhouse, is actually an ex-bacterium that we invited into our body. So our relationship with our bacteria is age-old, and you want to respect it so that you can have a barrier that has integrity, that's not leaking, and that is keeping you healthy. Unfortunately, we have lived historically near steel plants, car manufacturing plants, near coal-powered factories, near garment industries that spew out chemicals. So there's a lot of DDT, the works, the round. So if it's not DDT, if it's not Roundup, it's something else, PCBs, And so we're surrounded by these chemicals, and the only protection against those really is food. And I would say the key food I would recommend is saturated animal fats and ferments. What happens when you don't have good bacteria is you have bowel movements that look like this. Can people see this? Mm-hmm. Which is a type 7 on something called the Bristol stool chart. So anyone who cares about their health should look at this thing called the Bristol stool chart. It's floating around on the internet. You don't want bowel movements that look like lumpy kibbles, lumpy cat litter. You don't want a lumpy sausage-like bowel movement. You want something that's something between a 3 and a 4. A good, solid, long, well-connected, well-glued bowel movement. If it's soft blobs, if it's mushy, or if it's diarrhea, you're not assimilating your food. If it's very hard, you're constipated, you probably have hypothyroidism, you probably have bacterial dysbiosis. And so your stools will tell you your life story. So examine your stools every day. And if your stools are not good, that is a great cause for concern. To the extent you have got decent bowel movement, you're in good health.
What if you have both? I mean, one that's not good and one that's good in the same day.
Ask yourself why. That's the other thing that you want to think about, and that is, why did I get what I got? There are too many people who are told by their doctors, oh, there's no reason for why this happened to you. And you want to believe that. Oh, there's no reason why your child is autistic. Well, there's no reason why you have gastroenteritis 2 years in a row. There's no reason why you had cancer. There are reasons for this. And there are three primary reasons. Well, two actually. One is nutritional deficiencies and one is toxicity. You cannot fix toxicity with nutrition, and you cannot fix nutritional deficiencies unless you have fixed your toxicity issues. So you need to address both of those, and in your particular case, you just look at your life episodes. How was I raised? Was I C-section or was I vaginally born? Was I breastfed or was I formula fed? Formula has major amounts of aluminum in it. Not only does it not have bacteria in it, it has loads and loads of aluminum in it. And so, of course, you're going to have metal toxicity. And that's going to lead to all sorts of death of your microbiota that you want to consider. So I think for every person, it's very individual. And you just have to look at the circumstances. And for that reason, I think it is very important to go to doctors who actually talk with you, who take your life history. I know doctors tend to spend 5 minutes with their patients and assign a bunch of different tests. And today, they don't even bother to read the test results to tell a person that they're diabetic, or they have kidney failure, or they have liver disease. And so what you want to do is find a doctor who will spend a minimum of a half hour with you, who knows your family history, who knows your children and your children's children, who knew your old aunt who died of a disease, and so sort of like a family doctor. What has happened with specialization is they're focusing on your kidney or your liver to the exclusion of everything else, and you're getting treated as if it was a liver problem, but it's not. It's a whole body problem. And so I would demand medical care which involves history taking. Because doctors, to my mind, are not prescription writers, they're sleuths. If a doctor is not a good detective, you want to ditch them. And this is an opportunity actually for us to educate our doctors and demand what we want from them. But very few people. People still have the white coat syndrome and they're still fearful of doctors. They don't say, hey, doctor, I would like us to renegotiate our relationship. So say that at your next doctor's visit and see what happens. You know? At worst, he will ditch you as a patient. You might be lucky. Okay, so what bacteria improve what disease symptoms? OCD, they found that a probiotic of Lactobacillus rhamnosus, GG, improves systems of obsessive compulsive behavior. You know, people who wash their hands or just do this all the time. Autism, treating mouse models of autism with commensal bacterium, brie bacterium, fragilis restores the integrity of the gut and reduces gut symptoms, gut malabsorption, and so on. The altering of the microbiota to resemble that of the autistic mice can trigger the symptoms directly. So if you take the gut bacteria from an autistic child and put it into a mouse, the mouse develops symptoms of autism. Probiotic supplement containing Helveticus, Lactobacillus helveticus, and Bifidobacterium longum reduces anxiety and depression. And I have a whole list of links to these papers.
Need some water?
I would love some water.
Did you bring some or do you?
I have some. Okay. This here is a ferment, and this is a ferment of sour cream, beet kvass, whey, and a pineapple ferment that I had made. And it has hot pepper, cumin, and it's absolutely delicious. So it's largely fat because it has a lot of sour cream. And so I'm getting energy as well as ferments from this. Oh, that felt good. All right, bacteria and mental illness, a little bit more. You have got way more neurons in your gut than in your gut has about 100 million neurons. And 9 meters of intestines from your esophagus, so that's about 30 feet of intestine from your esophagus, which is over here, all the way to your anus. So there are more neurons in your gut than in your brain and in your spine. Respect those. You have a gut sense, you have gut intelligence, you have gut feelings. That's because your gut is very, very smart. Very smart gut. So this nervous system in your gut is called the enteric nervous system. It's not the brain. But guess what? The brain is delegating responsibility out to your gut. The brain's saying there's some gut level decisions that you gut have to make, and I am abdicating this responsibility, and you decide through your vagus nerve, you decide how to operate, what things are good for you, when are you being attacked by tigers, when should you run, when should you freeze, when should you jump, when should you panic, when should you be calm. That is your enteric nervous system. It was evolved to give the gut the go-ahead when the got-to-go impulse strikes without waiting for a sign-off from headquarters. This is where the local governments are taking over, and Washington, D.C. does not control how you build your roads and houses and hedges and ditches in Marin County or in your town. And that's critical. That's critical in life. We must oppose everything that central government hands out to us if it's not in our best interest, such as 5G, such as Wi-Fi regulations that are handed down from a very corrupted FCC, or vaccine mandates, or cancer treatment mandates. And that is because in our gut is where the action actually happens. 90% of the vagus nerve fibers, so there's this, from a vertebra here, your vagus nerves comes out, and it determines your sympathetic autonomic nervous system. It's really this one giant nerve with many branchlets all over your belly that determines the health of your gut. It directs your heart, it directs your kidneys, it directs your stomach, it causes you to do one thing versus the other with everything that is below your neck. 90% of the vagus nerve fibers carry information from the gut to the brain. This is key to remember. Your brain is being informed backwards, so it's a very decentralized operation. And your gut and your vagus nerve is actually carrying information back to your brain and saying, do this, do that. You must produce this or that or the other. It's not the other way around. And that brings up a very important point, and that is the center does not control. It's your cell membrane that controls your disease. It is the soup that you're swimming in that controls your DNA mutation. It's not your nucleus. And you can address it every single day. You can choose to swim in a brominated, chlorinated, poisoned pool, or you can choose to swim in the ocean, which has nice salt water. And that'll determine what happens to your health. You didn't get it from your grandma, you didn't get it from your genes, you didn't get it from what is inside your brain. It's all coming from your external environment. And your skin is a sensor. Your eyes and ears and your gut are all sensors for your external environment. And so it's critical that you respect the external environment as the chief progenitor of all disease. So when a doctor tells you, oh, hey, you have cancer and it can't be cured, try changing the soup mix. Try changing the swimming pool that you're in. If the doctor tells you have heart disease and you're going to die, or you have MS and you're going to die eventually, try changing your environment and you will find that you have dramatic results. So your brain is now interpreting the gut signals as emotions, and then it's going to tell you, yeah, you're right. Your serotonin regulates your mood, sleep, memory. There are people who are anxious, insomniac. You eat good food, you sleep better. You have gut bacteria, you sleep better. So I cannot overemphasize the importance of gut bacteria and eating and making ferments.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You mentioned you have the pineapple ferment.
Mm-hmm.
How do you do that?
Oh, very easy. You take the rind of pineapple, put it into water. And
Obviously organic pineapple.
Organic, only use organic pineapple, folks. And add a half a cup of any sugar. So what you're doing is the bloom on the pineapple is fermenting the pineapple, the rind of the pineapple, eating up the sugar, and tepache. It's called tepache. It's used in Mexico as a refreshing drink on very, very hot days. It's absolutely delicious, and it smells and tastes of pineapple. So, it's not too sweet.
So you're actually doing it for the drink, not for the pineapple itself. You're not eating.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So now, let me go back. So you add the pineapple rind, you add all-star, the spice, the allspice, not all-star, and cinnamon, and you cover it with a cheesecloth with water in it for a few days to a few weeks, and you get this wonderful lacto-fermented brew that's called tepache. It's absolutely delicious, and so that's yet enough. So you're not wasting stuff. Take the rinds of fruits and vegetables and ferment them, and you will have beautiful, beautiful ferments. You can take the rinds of lemons, throw them into. You do that all the time.
Yeah.
Into sauerkraut. You can take jalapenos and throw them in, and these are just ferments that'll give you all of these serotonin and dopamine producing gut bacteria that'll heal you, your child, your family.
Great.
Eating fats increases the levels of dopamine. Eating carbs increases your serotonin levels. So understand what you're eating and not eating and what you should be eating in order to manage your gut biota. They found that cells from germ-free mice. So these were mice. They took bunches of mice. One group, they wiped out all their gut bacteria with antibiotics, and they're now called germ-free mice. That's the scientific term for germ-free mice. They produce approximately 60% less serotonin. These were very depressed and anxious mice. When these germ-free mice were recolonized with normal gut bacteria, the serotonin levels went right back up and they became happy campers. The serotonin deficit got reversed. There's a guy by Yano and Shao and their colleagues observed that one condition, the presence of a group of approximately 20 species of a spore-forming bacteria, elevated serotonin levels in germ-free mice. So bacteria help to elevate serotonin. We know this from mice, we know this from animal studies and baboon studies, and we know this in humans now. Blood clotting improves with adequate serotonin. People who have antibiotics are likely to bleed to death. The mice treated with this group also showed an increase in gastrointestinal motility compared to their germ-free counterparts. Germ-free counterparts have constipation. The serotonin-induced motility causes peristalsis, changes the activation of blood platelets, which are known to use serotonin to promote clotting. So antibiotics, folks, cause a huge array of really, really bad things. Really, really bad things to happen. Autism, I would posit, is not a brain disorder. Autism is a gut disorder. So I should let that sink in. Autism and most mental disease is actually a gut disease. If you address your gut, if you take out certain foods, if you add, subtract foods, if you take out poisons, you will heal autism to a large degree before the damage is done, and you will heal mental illness. We have found that 9 out of 10 autistic children have common gut imbalances such as leaky gut, irritable bowel, and fewer strains of good bacteria. They just don't have the bacterial diversity. Their moms may have had vaccinations in pregnancy. They may have bottle fed them. They may have not been born vaginally, so they did not get the biota from their moms. And so you're starting from the get-go with poor bacterial cultures in your belly. You want to enrich them.
So we have a couple more people. Jema Dwyer
Hi, Jema. Hi.
And Kari Thomas Weigand.
Hi, Kari. Howdy. Okay, anxiety and depression. Lactobacillus rhamnosus modulates your emotional behavior. So here's another bacterium of the lactic acid bacteria, which is, all of these are lactobacilli here. By acting on the central gamma aminobutyric acid system, which helps regulate emotional behaviors. Your bacteria produce a butter-like short-chain fatty acid called butyric acid in your colon, and they eat part of this drink that I have is actually not for me. It's food for the bacteria. The sour cream contains a lot of butyric acid that my gut bacteria love, and that's what I'm feeding them. Oopsie. And so that is the purpose of some of the food that we eat. Mice treated with rhamnosus developed increased GABA, a neurotransmitter, mRNA in the cortical regions, cingulate and prelimbic, and simultaneous reductions in the hippocampus, amygdala, locus ceruleus in comparison with control-fed mice. In other words, it affects your brain. The stuff that the bacteria produce affects how you feel, your moods, your computing ability, and so on. These bacteria also reduce GABA A alpha 2 mRNA expression in the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, while increasing GABA A alpha 2 in the hippocampus. They reduce stress in your entire body. They reduce stress-induced corticosteroid and anxiety and depression-related behavior. Administered to mice. Mice with their vagus nerve, so you chop off the vagus nerve, did not show these behavioral effects. So what is happening? The vagus nerve is stimulated by the bacteria to produce the GABA, which is talking back to the vagus nerve, and when you cut off the vagus nerves, the anxiety stays. So there's a big talkie-talkie going on between your gut lymphatic system, your gut nervous system, and your brain, and that's mediated by bacteria. Your bacteria are mediating it. That's powerful.
Yeah, so you really need the bacteria for your parasympathetic.
Yes.
With the vagus cut.
Yes, there's nothing.
There's no, yeah.
Large role. So there's bidirectional communication of the gut-brain axis that is mediated by your bacteria. And for the longest time, and what is processed food? Processed food is made to have high shelf life, and because it has high shelf life, it has no bacteria, no viruses, no fungi, therefore it is dead food. A lot of it is irradiated as well, so it's toxic on top of being dead. And so what you want is food that has been freshly alive just an hour ago, 2 hours ago, 2 days ago, but not food that will stay on your shelves for 2,000 years. Sugar, you can keep on your shelf for 2,000 years, no problem. The Kraft cheeses and all these, the ultra high temperature pasteurized milk, it will stay on your counter for weeks and months. So you don't want food that does not contain these live organisms. And why does that food not contain live organisms? Because the bacteria are much smarter than we are. They don't want to eat that food. And yet we are lame enough, dumb enough, or we've been blitzed with enough marketing to make us think that it's good food. It's not.
And you'll be reducing the plastic that comes into the environment also.
That is so true, and an important point. One of the viewers on this live stream, Mirabai, thank you, who has inspired me to use cloth and not plastic, doesn't use any packaging. And what does not using packaging do? You're forced to go to a farmer's market and buy vegetables that are sitting there. And you're forced to eat eggs, which come in their own packaging, and take cloth sacks with you. And so figure out your method of getting into this, but realize that you're helping not just the environment, but yourself as well. Calm versus anxious mice. When fecal matter from an anxious mouse strain is transplanted into a young mice from a calm strain, recipients lose the behavioral legacy of their mellow genes and become very anxious. and Collins, Bergdino and Collins, investigated the intestinal microbiota of mice when they swapped them. The opposite occurs when gut bacteria from calm strains are transplanted into juvenile mice from highly anxious strains. So I would strongly, before you take antibiotics, before you take these mental drugs, before you take Prozac, I would considering going to your best friend who's a calm-headed person and asking for a sample of her poop. Well, literally, it is safer than eating aspirins and Tylenols and immune suppressors and antibiotics and mood enhancers and mood suppressors. And people have done colonic or fecal transplants with great success for cancer, C. difficile, mental illness. You just take and this has been done historically. It used to be called yellow soup in China 5,000 years ago, And so you mix it with saline or a salt solution and take a turkey baster and up it goes. And the most dramatic changes happen, but there's such a big ew factor there. And you don't recognize that poop is a lot safer than a lot of the other things that you're putting into your life, on your skin, in your makeup, and surrounding yourself with. And so, to a degree, that's what it means to associate with good people. When you say you're judged by the friends you keep, you're literally, when you hug and kiss a person who's calm rather than anxious, you're getting their skin bacteria that promote calmness. And that's the healing touch. So hug people who are good and kind and calm and happy, and it might just rub off on you, literally.
We have another person watching, Alyssa Hirsch.
Oh, Alyssa. Hey, Alyssa. So what we're saying is, in a very real way, mice, who the mice are depends not on the mice themselves as we commonly think. You're not born with it or not part of your genes, but rather, and to a large degree, the composition of their bacteria. So for people who come from families of rage or depression, take hope. Take hope. There's hope, Embrace another family that is cut from a different cloth, and you might become like them. You might become like them. Women in yogurt. Recently, this was a new study a couple of years ago, 2013, sorry, not so recent. First human study to show an interaction between probiotics and brains in the humans. Kristen Tillish, a UCLA researcher, looked at 36 normal women who had no psychiatric symptoms. 12 of these ate fermented yogurt with probiotics, 11 ate a non-fermented milk product, and 13 received no intervention whatsoever. So 12, 11, 13. And then they looked at MRIs. Probably not a good idea to subject yourself to these tests because you're going to get MRIs, but still it's interesting. They took functional MRIs, and those clearly indicated that women who ate the fermented yogurt registered strong brain changes in areas associated with emotion and sensation when exposed to pictures showing angry or frightened faces. And what is going on to show is your food determines your reaction to your external circumstances. Why does the same person who's subjected to an incident kill themselves while the other person goes on to do great things in life? The difference is bacteria in many cases. Bacteria and infant health. Your microbes get swapped between mother's vagina, the father's bacteria, the mother's bacteria are eaten by the child as it passes through the birth canal through breast milk, which is now known to be teeming with bacteria. We thought breast milk was sterile. It's not. Cow milk is not sterile. Breast milk is not sterile. It colonizes the child's gut, and not only that, if your child has a disease, your breast has sensors that catch or grab the pathogens, take them to the mother, and put out the right bacteria, the right lymphocytes, the right antibodies that help the child fight the disease. So gut bacteria travel from mother to child through breast milk, colonize the child's gut. And what the breast milk is, it's actually the 4th and 5th trimester of pregnancy, breastfeeding. Think of it as the 4th and 5th trimester where the child's immune system is on breaks and the mother is taking bacterium by bacterium by bacterium and coaching the child on what's good and what's not. And so the mother is teaching the child self from non-self. The mother's milk is teaching the child lactobacilli are good to have, bifidobacter are good to have, Staph aureus are pathogens. And so what they did was 7 mother-neonate pairs were tested. Neonate means newly born. To conclude, the mother's breast milk, mother's feces, and child's feces contain identical species of bacteria. Your child gets what you have. So moms who are pregnant, moms who are lactating, it's critical to eat ferments. And the Weston A. Price, Alyssa, your foundation, Alyssa is a chapter leader. Weston A. Price Foundation promotes and encourages moms to eat lactofermented foods for this reason. Gut microbes transferred from mother to neonate through breastfeeding. We all know that. A key path of this communication in which the maternal gut bacteria reach the breast milk is through an enteromammary pathway to influence neonatal gut colonization and maturation of the immune system. Translated, that means it's not your brain that's giving the child what it's needs. It's your gut enteric system, your vagus nerve is determining what your child should have, shouldn't have. So all of that is happening through your enteric nervous system, this communication between the mother and child. So at a very gut level, the child and mother are bonded. And it's not at the brain level, but down in the gut. And that's a very important point to respect. When you say it's a mother's gut instinct, it's for real. It is backed by a huge amount of intelligence.
I have a question for you. Because you talked about that it was thought that breast milk was sterile, but now they know it has all
teeming with it.
Yeah. So also, I remember in using the baby's urine, fresh urine, on any rashes or anything. Yes. And they say that urine is sterile, but I would think it's probably the same thing.
It's the same. It is got fewer bacteria, but it does have microbiome. It has a microbiome of its own. It's coming through the urethra, and so definitely it has some organisms, but not pathogenic. And actually, you could do a lot worse things than coating your face with urine because it is very therapeutic. The bacteria as well as the urea.
So you're saying, in other words, it's a good thing.
It's a very good thing. The bacteria are very good. Yes, and so the mom's immune system located in her gut influences the baby, and what you're doing is in the first 2 years of the baby's life, their immune system is suppressed by the mother's immune system. So the mother is saying, baby, I'm going to coach you for the next 800 days on how to interact and react with pathogens, with friendly guys, unfriendly guys. And when you add vaccines to the mix, it makes the child's immune system inflammatory. And it inflames the child's immune system. It cannot be coached. Now the vaccines are coaching the immune system, not the mother's milk. And what happens then is many an autistic child who are given a vaccine on the first day of life, think of Saccharomyces, which is the yeast that causes candida, to be a friend. Because that's what was in the substrate of the vaccine. The microbe was grown on a yeast medium. And so now the child's body is completely confused about what is friend and what is foe, and it's inflamed. Okay. And that is deadly. That is something that's very hard to reverse as you grow up. So it is critical for vaccinating moms to at least breastfeed their children to take away the ill effects of the inflammation that'll produce. Microbe swaps between mother and child. Children with diverse gut bacteria have less allergies. The more gut bacteria, less allergies. If you were born on a farm, you have less allergies because you've got a diverse microbiome. The experiment, or they looked at 411 infants in Copenhagen for Americans, to mothers with a history of asthma, and they were enrolled from the years 1998 to 2001. So it's a long study, okay? Diversity of intestinal flora was inversely associated with allergic rhinitis sensitization and peripheral blood eosinophil count. So the more diversity you had, the less autoimmunity, the less allergies you would have. Bacteria nutrition. Relationship with the bacteria microbiome is either symbiotic, which is mutually beneficial, or commensal, which is providing benefit to one member without harming the other. So in life, think about this. You're doing things for people, and other people are doing things for you. And then sometimes you have this person who's just so tamped down they can't do things for others, and you're doing things for that person. But that person is very grateful and is accepting that. And that's how a civilization works. Likewise, in your gut, you have a very similar societal structure where you have people doing quid pro quo, bacteria doing good things for you. In return, you're hosting them, you're giving them this, you're giving them butter so that they can live and thrive. And in return, the bacteria are making you aromatic amino acids, they have a shikimate pathway, they're making all sorts of enzymes that your body cannot make and helping you digest food a whole lot better. So those are symbiotic bacteria. And then commensal are just the bacteria that are hanging out. And in a sense, they're good too, because what they're doing is they're keeping out the pathogens. So you need a combination of beneficial and commensal, symbiotic and commensal bacteria to keep the pathogenic bacteria in check. Every single time a person has a dose of antibiotics, what are you doing? You're taking out not just the symbiotic, you're taking out the commensal. And nature abhors a vacuum. If you have a bare patch, blackberries will grow on it, and in that bare patch step in pathogens. So without exception, every time you eat an antibiotics, there is hell to pay for several months to several years afterwards. Unbeknownst to me, I got Cipro in my IV when I had the dengue in Malaysia. And for 2 years, I had infection after it. I had bronchitis, sinusitis, this, that, and the other infection. The infections just never go away. And so it's terrible. Cipro is one of the most toxic antibiotics out there. But you want to avoid antibiotics because you want to encourage the 99% good guys or the 80% good guys in your gut. So the pathogenic host microbe interactions are the exception. But the main point is the bad guys are very, very small. So embrace your bacteria. You will notice that children who get lots of antibiotics growing up put on a lot of weight. Chickens who are given antibiotics growing up become heavy-duty chickens. So that's what they use to fatten chickens up. Whereas naturally raised animals require up to 30% less caloric intake to maintain their body weight because it's all getting assimilated. So you have to eat a lot to get nutrition if you don't have bugs in your belly because you can't digest it. This remarkable observation, it's not so remarkable and it's not counterintuitive at all because you reckon if you eat food that your bacteria want, they're converting it into food that you need. And so you can get by with less. And you find that with cows, you find that with, dairy animals and all that. So veterinarians know that, but we have chosen to ignore it. Bacteria nutrition. So bacteria grow based upon the kinds of macronutrients you give to the body. So when a baby is getting mother's milk, they have bifidus. When a mother is lactating, she has a different set of bacteria. When she is pregnant, progesterone suppresses certain bacteria and increases certain others. When you're eating carbs, you have more firmicutes. When you are eating less carbs, you have more bacteroidetes. Firmicutes cause you to put on weight, bacteroidetes cause you to lose weight. So when you gain and lose weight, it is less to do with It has something to do with the macronutrients as well. But your bacteria as well change. And they change how your nutrition happens or assimilation happens in your body.
So what you described in this is carbs.
Yes.
Are you talking about refined carbs? What are you?
I'm talking about refined carbs. Oh yes, I should make that point. I'm not talking about the cellulose, the complex starches, the vegetable and fruit carbs that the bacteria absolutely love. I'm talking about refined carbs that'll give you an overabundance of one kind of bacterium above and above the other kinds of bacteria. Not monosaccharides, not single sugars, but complex sugars like cellulose. Disaccharides like lactose are broken into their corresponding monosaccharides. So what we find is a significant portion of the carbs that you eat, including complex plant polysaccharides and unbroken starch, if they're the right dietary carbohydrates, normally pass down to your big intestine undigested. And when they do that, you first feel full, your bacteria are fed, and those starches are not going into your body, but rather they're being used by your bacteria to produce, guess what? So they eat it, they produce food for themselves, and they produce fat for you. They make butyric acid, which is a short 4-chain fatty acid, which is one of the key acids in butter, and so the bacteria are actually feeding you fat. So you eat carbs, or a cow eats carbohydrates, but it's actually feeding itself fats. The cow is growing because of fats, not the carbohydrates. That's kind of cool because you're feeding carbs to get fats. So when your carbohydrate mechanism is messed up, that's the reason you're eating fats. You eat fats and you feel better. It can be messed up if the carbs get digested upstream. So if they get assimilated directly into your body, you're getting carbs in your body. Your bugs are not getting the carbs. You're getting the carbs, and you're putting on the weight because your body can't tolerate the carbs, and your bugs are starving to death. So it helps to love things like artichokes and vegetables that are very deliciously rich in complex starch, with lots of fats added to them. Dense microbial population, up to 1,011 cells per gram of colonic matter, are present that are well equipped to hydrolyze complex carbohydrates. So when you get your body accustomed to eating these complex, so I hear many people who go from diet to diet. They jump from high carb to low carb to low this to paleo that and so on. And they have diarrhea or they have constipation because they can't digest these things. And the reason is the gut ecology is not caught up. In order to have a diet or change a diet, you have to do it very slowly, get your gut biome adjusted to that new diet, and it will over time. What you can't do is all of a sudden you're eating fats and all of a sudden you start eating carbs, you're going to have diarrhea because you can't digest them. Or vice versa, if you were eating carbs and now you eat only fats, many people cannot digest it. So your gut microbiome is very, very important, and it takes a while to develop. It takes a while to develop. When people start drinking milk after they've not had milk for many, many decades, have a hard time until the gut bacteria populate, you get lactobacilli, and then you're able to metabolize and digest the milk. So that's important to think about. So when doctors prescribe these radical changes of diet, or anyone prescribes these, remember it's a seesaw. You're going like this, very slowly. You never want to go like this, or you'll hit the ground and hurt yourself. Many of the enzymes required to utilize these dietary substrates are not encoded in the human genome. By contrast, the microbiome contains 100 times more genes than the human genome and is highly enriched with some of these enzymes. So the things that you can't digest or don't have digestive enzymes for, your bugs can digest for you. And that is the joy and the art of cultivating your bacteria. And I think we should we stop at this point?
Probably a good idea.
And we'll carry on with the next one at the next session. But the key here is get bacteria, fungi, viruses into your life.
I was like, maybe the next slide might be the last because it's still dealing with the carbs.
Okay, yes. Yes. Complex polysaccharides in the large intestine, these convert to short-chain fatty acids. So basically, carbs are converted to fats. And then what you see is all these fats are absorbed across the epithelium. The organs love these short-chain fatty acids. They're like rocket fuel, as opposed to being energized, because each fat is much denser in energy than a carbohydrate, and yet it breaks down much faster. So they turn into ketone bodies that your organs use. Your skeletal system and cardiac muscle can be used by these adipocytes for lipogenesis. So butyrate is metabolized in the gut. So this butyric 4-carbon fat-like substance is made, ketone is made in the gut epithelium, and it is awesome. It's a signal. It's anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, and so we underestimate the importance of gut bacteria in all of this. And so it can derive, and it feeds your epithelium. So it feeds your colon as well. 70% of the colon's energy can be obtained directly from the gut bacteria. So now it's not dependent upon you to eat your butter for it to be fed. The bacteria are constantly feeding the colon. That's less energy that you have to spend, and you can get by with eating 30% less if you have a nice, rich, bacteria-filled colony in your gut. And the same thing. So a bacterium called Bacteroides theta iota micron is a prominent member of this normal intestinal gut microbiota. It has an apparatus that acquires and digests otherwise unusable dietary polysaccharides. So things that you would ordinarily poop away, it eats. And it has a complex multi-component starch utilization system. So your gut does not have those enzymes, but this bacterium, theta iota micron, does. It has 15 polysaccharide lysase genes. There. Still working? Okay. And it has evolved this remarkable capacity to sense the availability of carbohydrates in its environment, and it's able to forage and utilize these host-derived glycans, which is mucin. And so if it doesn't have those carbohydrates, it's going to eat you. Yes, so be careful how you change your diet and how fast you change your diet, because you're getting a whole bunch of people used to certain things, and it's like moving a ship around. So this is the world or the civilization that you're in charge of, and if you do bad things to it, gram-negative bacteria get in. But those are very few and very far between. If you take care of your system, the gut bacteria are your helpers and not your enemies, and antibiotics do nothing but destroy your gut. And with that, we'll call it a day.
Yay. Thank you. Goodbye.